Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are cracking open a master teacher's playbook. We're going to uncover the hidden science behind what makes a truly great teacher. Let's dive right in.
All right, so what is the single biggest mistake a teacher can make in a classroom? It's not what you'd think. It's not about getting a fact wrong or having messy handwriting. Nope. It's something much more fundamental, a mistake that creates this silent, creeping confusion across the entire room. Okay, so this brings us to our first section. We're going to pinpoint the most common and honestly the most damaging failure in communication that happens in the classroom.
Okay, check this out. This is a real instruction a teacher actually gave. I want you to get into pairs, look at the picture, decide who's the criminal, write it down, and then tell me. I mean, wow, that's five? Five separate commands, all smashed into one sentence. It is an absolute recipe for disaster. You just know that by step 3, half the class is completely lost. And this right here, this highlights two classic mistakes. First, asking, "Do you understand?" right after a super complicated instruction, it's totally useless, right? Because kids who are confused are usually too shy or embarrassed to say so. And second, the teacher just assumed. They assumed that because it was clear in their head, it must be clear in everyone else's. Big mistake.
So, how do the pros, the master teachers, avoid this trap? Well, it turns out they have this kind of secret language, a specific toolkit of questions designed to just eliminate confusion before it even starts.
Okay, so the first tool in the kit is for vocabulary. Instead of asking that totally useless question, "Hey, do you understand the word exhausted?" A great teacher uses something called a concept checking question. We'll call it a CCQ. And the whole point is to check the concept, the meaning, not just the word.
And here's a perfect example of how that works. Instead of asking if they understand exhausted, you ask, "If I am exhausted, do I want to run or sleep?" See? It's brilliant. This simple little question forces the student to actually show you they get it. There's no hiding behind a simple yes. They have to prove they understand the meaning. It's so quick, it's elegant, and it's basically foolproof.
All right, but what about for activities? Well, for that, there's an even more important tool. It's called an instruction checking question, or an ICQ. And this has absolutely nothing to do with vocabulary. This is purely about making sure the students know exactly what you just asked them to do.
So a great teacher, right after giving instructions, will just rapid fire these simple questions. Are you working alone or in pairs? Are you writing or speaking? How much time do you have? Bam, bam, bam. And if the students can't shoot those answers right back, the activity doesn't start. Period. It's such a simple habit, but it prevents total chaos. All right, so we've got the tools to make sure everyone's on the same page. Now let's talk about how to teach the actual bricks of a language, stuff like grammar, without putting everyone to sleep. How do you make the rules not boring?
Oh man, we've all been there, right? You're just staring at the clock during some long, dry grammar lecture. You're trying to memorize all these abstract rules, and you forget them literally the second you walk out the door. It's a terrible, terrible way to learn.
So what's the solution? You make it visual. Look at this timeline. Just at a single glance, it shows you the meaning of a really complex verb tense. This one image is so much more powerful, so much more memorable than a whole page of dense, boring rules.
Okay, so once the students have those bricks, the vocabulary, the grammar, the best teachers use them to build something really engaging. This is all about turning passive skills, like just reading a text, into a real adventure.
The absolute worst, the worst way to do reading in a class is that round robin thing. Where each student takes a turn reading a sentence out loud. It's so stressful for the person reading, and it is mind-numbingly boring for everyone else. So what does a master teacher do? They use something called a jigsaw technique, and it completely transforms reading into this awesome collaborative puzzle.
So here's how it works. The key is creating what's called an information gap. You literally split the text, give one half to group A and the other half to group B. This forces them, they have to talk to each other to figure out the full story. And just like that, they're not just passively reading anymore. They're investigators trying to solve a puzzle. And this whole idea of active learning, it also applies to managing the energy in the room. The real pros are masters at balancing what they call stirrers and settlers. Stirrers are those high-energy activities that get everyone moving and buzzing. And settlers, well, they're the quiet, focused tasks that calm everything back down. It's all about controlling the rhythm and the flow of the lesson.
Okay, so we've got all these individual tools and techniques. CCQs, ICQs, jigsaw reading, but how do they all fit together? Well, it all comes down to the master blueprint, a 5-stage structure that is the foundation for pretty much every great lesson. So here it is, the blueprint itself. It's 5 stages. First, you start with a hook, something to grab their attention. Then, you check what they already know so you're not wasting anyone's time. Third, you teach the new stuff as clearly as possible. After that, you test their understanding in a very controlled way. And then finally, stage 5, you let them apply it. Use it freely.
Now listen up, because this is probably the most critical part of the entire blueprint. It's knowing when to correct mistakes. See, in that test stage, your focus is 100% on accuracy. You correct every single mistake. Think of yourself as a mechanic, making sure the engine is built perfectly. But when you get to the apply stage, your focus switches to fluency. And this is key. You have to stay silent. You do not interrupt. You let them drive the car, even if they swerve a little bit. That's how they build confidence. That's how they learn to actually use what you taught them.
And that really brings us to the big takeaway here, because these aren't just teaching tricks. Not at all. These are universal principles for clear, effective, and, well, memorable communication. Just think about it for a second. What if every meeting you were in, every presentation you saw, every conversation you had was built on this blueprint? Imagine a meeting that starts with a real hook, checks to make sure everyone's on the same page, and knows when it's time to nail down the details versus when it's time to just let ideas flow. Now that is a lesson I think we could all benefit from learning.